The cupbearer in Sufism. Before I begin to discuss the symbolism of the cupbearer inside Sufi traditions, that is to say traditions of Islamic mysticism, I would like to present a rather long poem. O cupbearer, to you is the complaint. We have called upon you, even if you do not hear. And a companion, enchanted by his charm, I drank the wine from his hand. Each time he woke from his stupor, he pulled the wineskin close and leaned back. He poured for me 4 times over. A slender branch, bending with grace, his lover, from the pain of longing, lies restless, weakened by desire. Every time he thinks of separation, he weeps. Why does he cry for what has not yet come? My eyes, dimmed by tears, deny the moon's light after you. My eyes have gone dim from weeping too long, and one part of me cries with the other. I have no patience, no endurance left. My people blame and criticize me, denying the depth of what I feel. My state deserves to complain, both from despair's grief and hope's humiliation. A seared heart and endless tears, knowing the fault but refusing to confess. Oh, you would turn away from what I describe. My love for you has only grown, flourishing. Do not say that my love is mere pretense. Now, on the surface, this does not seem religious, this poem. But it was made by Ibn Zuhr al-Hafid, a poet from Al-Andalus, which is modern-day Spain, and he was active in the 11th and 12th centuries, who was a famous physician and medical practitioner that arguably was not only a famous physician of the body but also of the soul, as he was a Sufi practitioner that wrote much famous Sufi poetry about Islamic mysticism. And in this poem we see the saki, or the cupbearer, and Sufi poets often refer to the cupbearer, the saki, as the one who pours the wine that is the metaphor for the divine love and passion of God into the hearts of the lovers of God. Through God, they experience the sweetness of the intoxication of faith and the connectedness to God. The cupbearer is God, the guidance, the closeness that is the divine presence. The saki is the pure master and the perfect guide through whom the yearning lover reaches the love of God and God himself. And this symbolism is made even stronger by the references to wine drinking and intoxication, since alcohol is forbidden in Islam. And this creates a stark contrast of opposites between the sacred and the sinful in this symbolism of the cupbearer. And contrasts like this are a strong poetic element in Arabic classical literature, and a recurringly used tool to highlight certain types of symbolism and to give power to certain types of messages and meanings in texts. And the closeness to God is here linked to intoxication, a normally sinful state that in this poetry is turned into a state of a higher sacred nature. And just like the sinful alcoholic needs to drink the alcohol, he needs the wine, the pious believer has the same need for God's closeness, whose absence the believer will complain about, since he is in need of God just like the alcoholic is in need of his wine. And the cupbearer here becomes a bringer of divine love and the ecstasy of divine love, or intoxication that overwhelms the seeking believer's soul. And accepting the cup from the cupbearer also signifies the seeking believer's trust and surrender to God's higher power and closeness. Just as one accepts the cup without questioning, the Sufi must surrender to the divine will and trust in God's guidance. This act of receiving symbolizes giving up one's own control in favor of divine guidance in a state of faithful ecstasy due to the closeness to God, to the divine. In some interpretations, the cupbearer can also symbolize the sheikh or the spiritual master who guides the disciple towards enlightenment. The master pours the wine of spiritual knowledge and wisdom, guiding the seeker, the disciple, on the path, helping them to experience the divine truths. This mentorship allows the disciple to experience a transformation of consciousness, to be allowed to drink deeply of a higher spiritual truth, to dissolve into a state of divine love, and ultimately lose themselves in the unity of God. To be in a state of spiritual intoxication due to your love of God and God's closeness to yourself. Another possibility with the cupbearer symbolism is that there has existed some fringe Sufism where drinking alcohol to get intoxicated has been used in order to get closer to God, to be in a state of intoxication, in order to allow yourself to open up to divine truths. Though this is still very fringe, as alcohol is usually seen as being highly forbidden in most traditions of Islam. And thus, this has only really been practiced by very fringe Sufi groups. Though what has not been fringe is to use references to wine and alcohol in Sufi poetry, as that has been a very common thematic usage, as a metaphor for the divine love and the relationship to God and spiritual guidance. And this also plays into a larger tendency of Arabic poetry of being transgressive, of breaking and being playful with the norms of society and of religion. And Ibn Zuhr was not the only one. Rumi did this too. O beloved cupbearer, fill that offered cup, highwayman of the heart, revealer of the path of faith. What flows from the heart and mingles with the soul, its fervor intoxicates the eye that sees God, Lord of all worlds. That wine is from the vineyard of the nation of Jesus, and this wine is from Mansur for the nation of Yasin, Muhammad. And this piece of verse is rich in Sufi symbolism, drawing parallels between divine love, spiritual enlightenment, and wine, that is again used as a metaphor for a transcendent experience, a transcendent intoxication, like the intoxication of alcohol, but instead of being sinful, it is a sacred experience. The reference to Jesus and Muhammad here highlights unity in spiritual truths across paths. Mansur is likely alluding to Ibn Mansur al-Hallaj, a famous Sufi mystic known for his deep mystical experiences and martyrdom during the 10th century, connecting wine to previous spiritual Sufi masters, as Jalal ad-Din Arumi was about 300 years later than Ibn Mansur al-Hallaj. But continuing on with the poetry of Rumi, that is wine from the jars, and this is wine from the jars. Never taste this one unless you shatter those jars. That wine only frees the heart from sorrow for a moment. It doesn't kill grief forever, nor end enmity or hidden malice. A single drop from this cup makes you immensely wealthy. My soul is a sacrifice for this precious golden cup. In these lines, Rumi contrasts two types of wine, one symbolizing the fleeting pleasures of the material world, and the other symbolizing the deeper spiritual intoxication of divine love or mystical insight. The shattering of the jars suggests the true spiritual experience requires abandoning temporarily worldly attachments, as found in the lower intoxication of alcohol. Only then can the seeker truly taste the wine of spiritual ecstasy, which brings a more lasting release from sorrow. Here is a contrast of divine sacred wine, of the divine presence and love, and the profane, worldly, forbidden wine. Wine which offers nothing but temporary relief and no inner peace. And this piece of poetry is also an example of the fact that there is a difference between the wine as a metaphor for divine love and closeness to God and the physical wine of this material world, whose containers you ought to throw away and shatter, since it is a sinful, worldly liquid, and not close to the fulfillment of closeness to God and being pious, which has its own much deeper and much more fulfilling intoxication. Rumi is basically doing an anti-drinking ad in poetry form here, saying don't do alcohol, instead try to get closer to God because it will give you deeper fulfillment in life. And this is some of the symbolism of the cupbearer and the sacred wine in Sufism, as a metaphor for the divine love and the closeness to God. Though there are of course even more symbolism associated with this, and I could go far deeper than I have done in this video. But I hope you liked this video and you found it interesting. Please post questions and comments in the comment section, and I will try to respond to you, my viewers, as quickly as possible.
Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities.
اشتركوا بالقناة من فضلكم.